Hey guys, I'm Sean from BlueHub, and today I'm going to be going through a consignment process, which means you have a consignor who is essentially has stock ready for you to sell that you do not currently own. This can also be called things like call off stock and stuff like that, but the main point here is that we want visibility over stock levels, but we do not currently own the stock. Now, the main point or the main issue with doing that usually is that if there is a value against that stock that is building into your valuation, it is technically illegal to do so, I believe. But providing there is no value against that stock, you are not officially inflating your value, and therefore the process is fine. Let's jump into how that would actually work. The first step is going to be bringing in the stock. Now, we're not going to be doing this via a purchase order since we don't currently have the stock. We're going to be doing it via a stock adjustment. And the way we'll do this is we will raise a stock adjustment. The first stock time you ever do this, it will be for the full stock amount of stock that they have sitting in the consignor's warehouse. The second time you do this, it would just be for if they bring in a new batch of goods that you need to track. We'll then go, once again, in the first case, or we'll always go into the zero stock option here. We'll select the location, which will be the consignment location, or the supplier location in this case. We will then select the product that we're going to have actually brought in. And we're always going to make sure that the unit cost here is 0. Like I say, the first time you ever do this, this will be for the full quantity in their warehouse. So let's say they have 1,200. And then for every time after that, you're just going to be making adjustments for what they bring in. So if they bring in an extra 300, we'd just put a 300 in it, etc., etc. So in my case, I'll do the 1,200 here, like so, and then complete that. And that is now going to give us visibility within our system. The fact that they have 1,200 stock on hand is against their location, so we can see we don't actually have it, it's with them. And we can then sell that accordingly. We know we have 1,200 to sell. As we sell it, I imagine that is initiated via you requesting that stock. So one way of doing that would probably be using a transfer. So we can do that by coming to the inventory tab here and then going to a stock transfer. And from here we can select the consignment location, and then we can bring that into wherever we're going to be selling that then from. From here we can then do an order for this, so we can put in our consignment item against our transfer like so. Say that we want, let's say 150 to fulfill this order, or any orders we have on in that period. And we can then print off a transfer order so that we can give that to the supplier so they know that we need this stock. From there, we can then authorize and complete our stock received or our stock transfer here to actually make that stock move between the systems as it happens in reality. So once they've actually dispatched the stock, you could follow this process. And now we have the stock sitting in our warehouse, but it's currently got 0 value. From here, I imagine the supplier would then give you an invoice. So what we'd do is we would come into our purchases here and we would raise a new service purchase. Within here, we would then add in the supplier who had actually managed this process for us. And we would probably select the location the stock is moved into. So in our case, we can say main warehouse here. And we can skip the order. Now the reason we can skip the order is because I imagine in this case you've already issued a transfer order or a request for the stock. They're just going to issue an invoice from there. So we don't need to send a PO across necessarily. If this process is initiated by a PO, you can do the PO before the transfer and then add the invoice after the transfer. From here we can then add in a invoice number, or we can basically replicate the detail of the invoice they've provided us with. And we can press the plus box here to add a product. From here, we'd probably have one generic consignment item. So just the way service purchases work, they are always going to be a service item within here. So we can see that we have a few different service items within our system, but you'll probably want one for a consignment item. Some clients can also go to the specificity of having it individually based on like each SKU that they're going to be purchasing as a service. But you can always use the reference to track this. So if I wanted to just say consignment item in here, I could do so. This box has a habit of kicking you out after you enter one character. From here, we can then add in a price, so whatever they have actually charged you for that product. And the important part here is the account. Now, this is currently set to general expenses based on our product here. It's important that when you are actually setting up your consignment item, it doesn't go into an inventory or an asset account, but to an expense account. If that is the case, once you actually press authorize here, and if this is an expense account, what you'll get is a little expenses tab appear on the left side here. This can then be used to allocate the cost that you have just accrued against actual physical assets. So using this, we can select the value that we're trying to allocate at the top here, and it's just £5 in our case. We can add a new allocation within the system, and we're going to allocate this to the stock transfer because that is the individual lines of stock we want to actually add this to. So we'll click the stock transfer. You'll then want to just make sure you have the stock transfer number to hand. So in my case, it's 0136. We'll then put that within here like so. And we want to do it to the stock that has arrived at the main warehouse. From there, we can then inflate the value of those goods by £5. I've only done this for a quantity of 1, I now realize, which is why it's only doing the £5. But obviously you do this to the full value of the invoice, to the full quantity of the goods, and from there we can press save. And what that's now done is if we go back to our stock transfer, we can see currently no manual journals exist here. But once we've now pressed authorize on that, we'll see if we go back to the manual journals, we now have a journal in here allocating our expense to our stock. And what that means for us, if we now go into our availability, which is our main stock report that we would use within the system, and then look up our consignment item within here, but we need the one that is in the main warehouse. So here we can see that now has a stock value of 5, so it has the correct value against it, which means when we sell it, the cost of goods will now be correct. But up until we actually had that purchase invoice come in, we was not tracking the value of that stock, and therefore not artificially inflating our valuation, making sure we are legally compliant. That'd be all from me. I hope you found this video helpful in kind of showing that process. But if you have any additional questions, please let us know. Bye.